members and honoured guests. Welcome to the Corporate Services and Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Monday 11th of April. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, I have apologies from Councillor Peter Jackson and Councillor Mary Murphy.
Okay. Any more? Is everybody else here? Okay. Minutes of the previous meeting have been circulated. Do we agree they're a true record? Agreed. Sign them early in anticipation. Thank you very much. Disclosure of members' interests? None? Okay. Forward plan of cabinet decisions, that's for information, pages 5 to 8. Anything to add on that?
Nothing to add, Chair.
Right. First report is item 5, the Blythe Relief Road. Have we got a cabinet member here? No. Rick, are you going to lead us on this?
Yes, I'll do it, Chair, in the absence of... I can't see. No, he's not here. Right, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. This is quite a straightforward report about Blythe Valley Relief Road, and it will be going on to Cabinet. So, a very brief history. In July 2019, following a public consultation exercise, it was agreed that we would pursue option 3 of 5 options that had been considered for a relief road to try to resolve the heavy traffic problems in Blythe. So July 2019, we selected what we called option 3, which is described or shown in map 1 and described in paragraph 5 in the report. It very quickly became clear during the detailed design phase that there were some real problems with this option. The major one being that Persimmon, who had been engaging with us over the route, decided that they had to move forward with their housing development. So all of a sudden we had an option which was adjacent to, and in some parts of the route would have to go through the middle of their housing development. We determined that option was then no longer viable. It would have been a huge problem and could have delayed the scheme for years with compulsory purchase, and that wouldn't be appropriate. So we looked again at the other options, the remaining options, and the design team are recommending option 5, which is described at paragraph 6 of the report, and again is shown on map 2. The rest of the report goes on to describe largely the funding for this. It's going to cost in excess of £40 million. 15% of that will need to come from the council, and it's a commitment from the council to make that money available. So what the report is asking Cabinet to do, and why we're here today, you're reviewing the report, is that we now start a public consultation exercise on that revised option 5. And once that is complete, if that is then agreed in the second report to Cabinet as the preferred option, we will then do the detailed design and complete the business case and seek the government's funding. I'll just end there, Chair, and try to answer any questions.
Well, actually, when you were speaking, Wojciech's just arrived. Just 2 seconds too late to introduce it. Before I go to questions, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Actually, I believe Rick introduced that very well. It's a much-needed road in Blythe, and we finally are at the point where we will be able to deliver it in a few years. And I'm happy to answer any questions, but I leave all technical questions to be answered by the professionals.
Thank you very much. Right, members, any? Liz?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks. I think everybody in this area of Northumberland is familiar with the ever-increasing congestion problems that surround Blythe. So I've great empathy with Blythe residents who've gone through extensive consultations and stakeholder engagement events, only to be seemingly not much further forward when it comes to the promised Blythe Relief Road. So I'm pleased to say it is now moving on. I've got a couple of questions that somebody might be able to answer for me. Certainly, the report in July 2019 detailed design and appraisal work that had been done over the last 4 years, and then identified Route 3 as the preferred option. Recognising that today we're being asked to confirm Route 5 as the preferred preferred option. I have got several questions that I just need clarified, if that's all right. What were the exact risks that materialised over that length of time? And I think you have referred to that, Rob, as the persimmon thing. So I just... And the 2019 report states that the benefit to cost ratio of Route 5 is considerably lower than for the other route options, as there is minimal benefit to the A193 Coupon Road. So can you explain how we're going to sort of get over that statement in this Route 5, which is now the preferred option? How will the benefit to Coupon Road come about? And thirdly, just there was an awful lot of stakeholder and public consultations in 2019. Will we be having the same number of events again? Because I know there's still a lot of public that would want to put their views forward on this. So will it be a really in-depth public consultation? That's it, thank you.
Thanks. I think Wojciech first and then Rick.
Yeah, I can start with the answers for your question, Councillor Dan. The first one was about the risk identified for the route number 3, I believe. Yes, you are right that persimmon development was the main risk, and since 2019, they started to develop houses on the estate. Previously, it was just an empty building plot when we could consider compulsory purchase of that. But it's not longer viable to buy the built houses. It would be too expensive and would drastically decrease the benefit to cost ratio. The second question was about the cost to benefit ratio for Route 5. The Route 5 has been slightly redeveloped, I believe, since 2019, and there is an extra link between the Chase Farm Drive and Ogle Drive, which will take the load from the town center into the Spine Road, just by a roundabout next to Asda. So that will also release the traffic congestion on the Coupon Road, which is going out and to the town center. And the third one about the public consultation, I'll leave it to Rick because I'm not aware of the number of public consultation events which will take place.
Don't you love it when your cabinet member answers the bits of the questions that you could answer, but he doesn't answer the bit that you can't answer. There will be full consultation. I couldn't say how many events, but I'll check that out and I'll come back to Sean with a consultation programme to circulate to all the members. But in terms of the route, yes, it's not a like-for-like replacement of the old Route 5. There are some additions, some tweaks, and the link which was mentioned, which one will relieve that congestion and two will improve the CBR, the cost-benefit ratio. But it's still positive, or we wouldn't be able to get the funding.
Can I just come back on that?
Yeah.
Obviously, we're here today for the recommendation that Route 5 is approved by Cabinet. And we're looking at 2026, I believe, for the programme to come to fruition. But it sort of worries me that on page 15 of the report, it states that this is not a full commitment to deliver the project. So, can we reassure Blythe residents that any future cost increases, for example, will not actually cause further delays and that they will get this project developed by 2026?
We'll have that reassurance that we'll do our best.
At this point of time, but I'm sure the administration is committed to deliver that project. It's one of the council priorities and it will be delivered hopefully on time. We cannot guarantee that because there are some factors which are not depending from the council and from the administration. We are dependent on the external funding, government funding, so we cannot guarantee everything, but there is a strong commitment from us to deliver it on time by I think it's February 2026.
Thanks, that's great. I mean, I just don't want to see Blythe residents, this time in 2026 being no further down the line. I do have an email from one of my fellow councillors here who is putting sort of her opinions about option 5 in here, and she is, I'm not going to go into them. Suffice to say that the public consultation will take all those comments into consideration. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver?
Thank you, Chair. It's wonderful to see this project happening. I understand that people of Blythe have been waiting for it for decades, and so it's good to see it coming to fruition. I understand also that, I mean, obviously the County Council has already made the financial commitment. It's in the budget, and the local MP has been talking to the Secretary of State for Transport about government funding. Are you confident that that government funding will be secured and you know will be enough to make the project go ahead?
I can't give a 100% guarantee, but absolutely the discussions we've had with DFT throughout the process, we discussed the need to change from 3 to 5. We've discussed that with them and they are being very positive. So I'm confident.
Any other member? Paul first, then Alex, then Mark.
Thank you, Chair. Just some clarification here. The Route 3, the one we are abandoning, goes through built-up areas, at least half of its length, whereas the Route 5 goes on the periphery. So I'm just concerned whether Route 5 will be as effective in relieving the congestion as Route 3, which we unfortunately have to abandon.
I don't have the detailed modelling to hand, so I couldn't give a definitive answer. In discussion with the design team, Route 5 is not as good as Route 3 would have been. That's absolutely clear, but it is still the best option and it will have the benefits which we're looking for.
Alex?
Thanks, Chair. I think the Director has just hit the nail on the head there. Route 5 is nowhere near as good as Route 3. I'm just concerned Persimmons aren't going to slap another planning application in on Route 5 and then we'll go to Route 6, 7 and 8. It's absolutely diabolical. I live north of Blythe. It's not a stone's throw. There's a river between us, and that's it. I travel into Blythe with great regularity. I don't go by Coupon Road. I go by Shankhouse Fire Station. Then I come down Laverick Hall Road, and the company I used to work for used to pay you by the mile. And it's 3.5 miles from where I worked to where I wanted to be in Blythe. By the end of my journey, it was 8 miles. My company didn't like to pay excess mileage, and they used to pay me the 8 mile, Chairman, because they realised it was impossible going down Coupon Road and coming back up Coupon Road at certain times of the day. Route 5 does not address that problem. It does not address that problem because there's so many accesses and egresses in Coupon Road. I'm absolutely astonished to read that there's 20,000 vehicles on Laverick Hall Road and Coupon Road. All the businesses is on Coupon Road. It's new homes that are on Laverick Hall Road. I'm looking at Sean, and I'm sure Sean secretly inside shaking, saying I agree with him because I'm a resident. He knows that's the truth. This is the only alternative. We have to take it. Just one thing I would like some help with, though, Rick. Just make sure those signs that show you the way to British Vault don't have Blythe written on, just in case. That will slow down all the traffic on Route 5. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And we do recognise that Coupon Road has been a nightmare for a very long time. Anything that you want to add to that? No? Malcolm.
Thank you, Chair. You know, I thought the whole point of this road was to get into the centre of Blythe, and that this just doesn't do it. And I'm with Alex on a lot of what he said there. So what I would like to ask is this the only option we have?
I think what we've been told is that this is the preferred route because it is the only route that currently matches the cost-benefit analysis, and any other route wouldn't secure funding under the current scheme.
I believe the Route 4 was also considered, but the cost to benefit ratio was much smaller in this particular case with that extra addition between Ogle Drive and Chase Farm Drive, which will basically take some load from the Coupon Road to the town center. Maybe not as, it will be not as good as the Route 3, but it is what it is and we are where we are. So we have to take it really as it is. That's the best option available at the moment. And there will be no other option in the future, I believe, with the current developments.
Councillor Taylor?
I think I'm working. There you go. Having been a resident of Blythe, brought up there most of my early life, parents still live there, I'm travelling down very regular. I can see a lot of issues with this, and I appreciate that people have looked at this. But can I ask, what are you going to do to improve this existing road to make it what you're expecting to alleviate the traffic?
So you're asking what tweaks have been made to the original?
Yeah, what they're going to do to it, because it is a bottleneck most days, twice a day, particularly around school times. But it is very, very busy road, and it does get congested. So I want to know what they're going to do to improve it, to make this a by road.
Rick, can you?
Is this Route 5 we're talking about, Councillor?
Route 5,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I think if we go to para 7, it explains that there will be a new dual carriageway. We'll upgrade the existing carriageway to dual carriageway, and there'll be junction improvements, and there'll be a segregated cycle path so people don't get stuck behind cycles, which is the bane of my life. And we're putting a double bridge over the railway line. So there will be improvements to the road, significant improvements, making it a dual carriageway.
Just a clarification on that, because on that bridge, obviously the bridge itself is going to be part of the Northumberland Line project. It's going to be a single carriageway bridge. I hope it says here, but this is going to be a double carriageway bridge, so there's going to be some joined up thinking. You're not going to build a single carriageway, knock it down and build a double. I'll take that as read, but I'm just assuming that you're not.
Yes, so we are joined up on this. The bridge has been it's been quite contentious with colleagues in central government as to whether the bridge is part of the rail project or whether it is part of a road project and where the funding comes from. So how we present it depends on the audience to an extent.
Okay, that's fine, as long as that's clear. Right, anything else on that, members? Right, so we've got the report. Basically, it's going to Cabinet, and all it's saying is that 5 is now the preferred route, and it recommends that goes out to consultation. Are we happy with that conclusion? Yep, thank you very much. Okay, next on the agenda is Advance Northumberland, and we are lucky after many... Oh, sorry.
Yeah. If I could just say a few words before we start, please, Chair?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I mean, as members will probably know, I wear 2 hats now. I'm the Executive Director for Regeneration in the Council. I'm also the Executive Director of Advance Northumberland, so I'm quite schizophrenic at times. We did a presentation at the request of the leader to informal cabinet last week, and we've been to NALC to give NALC a presentation on the activities of Advance, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there about what Advance are doing, and there's been bad press, etc. So we thought it important that this committee and the wider membership of the council find out about what Advance are doing. So what I've asked the team to do is to come along in person. So we have the directors of the various business units and Robin, who's the Chief Operating Officer, who was at the last meeting, to do a brief presentation. But it will take some time because the range of activities is huge. And if I tell you that I've asked them to cut this down from the 85 slides they originally had to a significantly smaller number, and I'll just ask them to do the presentation. If perhaps, Chair, the best way to do would be to keep questions until the end, just so we can flow it through. That might be the best way to use your time.
Yes, that's good. So we'll first listen to the 84 slide presentation, and then we'll have some member questions after that. So please take it away.
Right, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Committee, for hosting us today. It's great to have the opportunity, as Rick has said, to come and maybe let you have some information from the horse's mouth, as it were, about Advanced Northumberland. Could you click the next slide, please? First off, just to say we are quite a complex organisation. We're delivering on many fronts to boost economic growth, housing and regeneration in our town centres all across the county. We're 100% owned by the council, so everything we do is on behalf of Northumberland County Council. So what we're going to do today is give you a bit of a canter through some of the major parts of the business. But I suppose really I'd like to emphasise a key strength is the way the various aspects of Advanced Northumberland mesh together. I like to think that the sum is worth an awful lot more than the individual parts. And you'll see that in terms of we've got a cohesive story on the housing side of things, building and renting, and on the economic development and regeneration side of the business as well. And complex as we are, we only have a staff of 130, so we try and run on a very lean, efficient basis. Next slide, please. First off, tell you a little bit about the portfolio. This is our estate of land and buildings, and it's the, I suppose, the financial powerhouse of Advanced Northumberland. And it contains commercial property and homes to rent. Next slide, please. In terms of the background to the estate, our aim is really to provide good quality property that's good accommodation to meet the needs of residents and businesses in the county. We're the largest private landlord on the residential front operating in Northumberland, and one of the largest commercial landlords as well. We have over 164,000 square feet of commercial property, over 1,100 homes that we rent out, and the portfolio has a value of about £244 million. Next slide, please. We manage this estate in a positive, proactive way to try and improve quality, maximise income, of course, and maximise occupancy. And that last one we've been very successful at. There's great demand for our residential homes, and indeed our industrial portfolio is, I think, never been busier. So the team work very hard to make sure we provide the right product that meets the needs of residents and businesses within the county. And of course, it generates income, and we invest that income to provide other services, and you'll hear more about those later on in the presentation, but also return a significant sum every year to the council. Next slide, please. Looking very swiftly at our homes, our residential portfolio, this is sort of how the business started. We're not a registered social landlord, a registered provider, but we do have now 14% of our portfolio are let as affordable homes. So those are provided on the same basis as social housing and the same terms, and are rented via the Home Finder site. The rest of the portfolio is private rented stock. Next slide, please. And this slide's just showing a little bit of the diversity of our portfolio. We have a large holding in the Hurst area of Ashington, and that's where the company's predecessor sort of started. We have a chunk of affordable homes, and the bulk of our portfolio then is private rented homes across the county. Next slide, please. Commercial. There's a number of elements to our commercial portfolio. We have the standard sort of industrial warehousing, industrial buildings that you'll see across the county, but also a significant investment in retail, particularly Manor Walks and Westmoreland shopping in the centre of Cramlington. And we've put on the slide here at the bottom a selection of our tenants. As you can imagine, we're catering for businesses large and small right across the county. Next slide, please. And again, it's quite a diverse portfolio. Pie chart there sort of spreads it down. At the smaller side of things, we operate workspace units. These are easy in, easy out. Ideal for, I suppose, small and growing businesses. We have retail property, principally Cramlington Town Centre, but also others. For instance, we own the Tyne Valley Retail Park in Hexham. We have industrial property, which at the moment is absolutely booming. Demand has never been higher. And that includes some industrial estates such as the Wansbeck estate in Ashington. And we've got a small amount of leisure. For instance, we own the Commissioner's Quay pub in Blythe, or the Amble Inn, and those are rented out. Next slide, please. And just really sort of to summarise the estate overall, it does really 4 major things for us and for the council of the county. First of all, it provides a home for businesses, whether they're new or growing, or inward investors looking to come into the county to create employment and economic growth. It provides a vital element of the Northumberland housing market in terms of we're the largest private landlord. And it funds our activities. Michael and the team are going to tell you a lot more about what we do in terms of attracting investment into the county and supporting businesses. And we pay for that out of the proceeds generated by the estate. And lastly, but not leastly, if that is a word, we return about £13 million every year to the council via interest payments. So I'd like to think this is sort of the financial powerhouse of the company and also has a wider impact on the council's ability to deliver. Right. Next slide, please. Now, that's the end of the quick charge through our estates, and I'll hand you over to Duncan Bowman, who leads on our Ascent Homes, which is our house builder. Duncan.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin. Good morning. Next slide, please. So Ascent Homes are a housing regeneration company. We number between 45 and 55 directly employed people at any point in time. And we're here to create good additions to existing communities. Prosperity is key. Again, we've got internally employed house building jobs. And in terms of investment in SMEs, we've generated £34 million in locally north-based SMEs during our house building activities. We have a focus on quality of home, and particularly in the affordable housing arena. And also we've got a focus on sustainability, and certainly we have got a couple of schemes coming forward which will be zero carbon initiatives. Next slide, please. Our growth today started 6 years ago, delivered 50 last year. We've now had a record year in the last year of 115 units, and that's both private sale and affordable units. And during that period, we've delivered over 70 affordable units in various formats. Next slide, please. I'll canter through a few of our schemes. Our first one was the top left one, Windsor View, Newbiggin, 24 units, got a commendation by the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. The top right scheme, the Maltings, was a distressed scheme. We came in, redeveloped that. We bought it off the bank who pulled it back in the previous attempt to redevelop that. It produced profit for the county, and also won the RICS Best Residential Scheme in the North East, as well as a national commendation. Hemingway Court, bottom left scheme, 24 units, nice looking scheme, centre of Ponteland, but also delivering a small number of affordable housing in a high value area in the county. Next slide, please. Ellington, there's a slide, a future slide on that. There's 347 units there, so we've got capacity to deliver larger scale schemes, and over 50 affordable units will be delivered on site there. 28 have already been completed in conjunction with Benicia. Bebbside, we delivered 24 units there, all heated and hot water being provided by air source heat pumps, low carbon initiative. Cramlington, top right, redundant school site, scene of antisocial activity, which we cleaned up, and we've delivered again 24 residential units there. Bottom left, Blythe, adjacent to the golf course, bottom end of Plessy Road. Nice little scheme. Second scheme we undertook, lower value area obviously in terms of sales values, but the nice story there is that the private sale profit cross-subsidised the delivery of affordable rental units for local people. Again, we've touched on the partnership agreement with Benicia for Ellington, where we delivered 28 affordable units, and certainly we're going to repeat that on a number of sites going forward. Had a focus on community liaison. We still have, obviously COVID has affected that. We're looking at doing some of that over the coming months, certainly where we're building adjacent to local schools. Next slide, please. So just an idea of what we've got currently. The top, sorry, the writing's a bit small on this and also the maps, but you can see the top one. Hopefully you can see the orange bit is the affordable housing. The blue is the private sale. You can see the schemes we've currently got signed off and delivering. 11% are affordable housing. Obviously, there's a gestation period on those schemes. So some of those are 4 or 5 years old, those schemes. What we've got coming forward, those schemes we've got signed off, that's 24% become affordable units. And if we go on to the next slide, please. If we add in the 123 affordable units we're doing for Northumberland County Council over the coming years, that goes up to 39% in terms of the whole of what we're producing. You can see on the various slides again, two things: the affordable schemes from Northumberland County Council, the predominance is in South East Northumberland, with one scheme we're looking at or will be looking at in Sea Houses. But when you add in the previous slides, you can see we've got good spread across the county where the private sale is cross-subsidising the affordable units. Next slide, please. So when you put those schemes in the sausage machine, you produce a medium-term financial plan. You can see we're getting up to over 150 units there, and also the profit from the schemes breaks £4 million in year 2. Important note to add, they are just schemes that we've had signed off by our board at the minute, so they do not include, for example, the affordable schemes which I mentioned, which are coming through from Northumberland County Council. That's just purely a reflection of they've not been signed off by our board, but obviously that will be a formality. Next slide, please. So just a few of the schemes the first one we are currently delivering. So Ellington Colliery, obviously part of the coal mining legacy in Northumberland. We're delivering private sale homes. We've delivered 28 affordable homes, as I've mentioned, with Benicia. The bottom left, I have to say, is not our development. Unfortunately, it's caused a decant from Linemouth to there, despite the retailer offering assurances to Harworth. And Harworth undertook that development direct with Co-op, but it's part and parcel of that development. The point of the slide really is that large-scale residential can pull in further investment from elsewhere. And the bottom right is actually Ellington Business Centre. So there's 2 wings of that. The left wing was it needed complete refurbishment. It couldn't be let. We've gone in and refurbished that and housed our site management team in there during the course of the delivery of that scheme. And when we leave, we'll hand that over in a state where the business centre can let those units out. So it's a real win-win for everyone. And in addition to that, it's cheaper than us having site cabins there, which was all good news. Next slide, please. Regeneration of Blythe Quayside. This probably isn't just about Ascent Homes. There's 41 units being built there. They're of a particular architectural style. This scheme has been in gestation longer than Ascent Homes, actually. It's been on the drawing board for over 9 years. But what it shows really is the sum of the parts. If you go to that area of Blythe, you've got the hotel there, which was delivered by the project management team, the deal undertaken by our investments team, and to the right of that, we've got Blythe Workspace, which houses a number of small businesses in the area, delivered by our project management team, and obviously supported by the business growth function. Next slide, please. So much needed affordable housing. This is a scheme of over 70 units, of which are 11 affordable units. And what we can do, which private developers don't often do, we deliver the affordable housing at the front end of the scheme. So you can see the aerial on the right-hand side of that slide. The affordable housing is actually out the front end. It's the first units to be built, and obviously the tenure blind in terms of design when we deliver them, and therefore Northumberland County Council. Next slide. So final slide. This is really just an example of why invest in house building. Why should Northumberland County Council invest in house building? So Robin mentioned earlier we pay rent on any loan given, and you can see the square in the middle for £5.8 million of repayable loan, and we pay interest on that loan. You get 327 units delivered on site. You get £10.2 million worth of profit, that's the target level. You get £53 million of investment on that particular site, of which £38 million will go to locally based SMEs, the 70% target we have internally. We are going to deliver another 28 affordable units there. Now, the key statement there is they are non-Section 106 units, so that site was deemed not to be able to deliver affordable units in terms of its financial viability, but we're still doing that. We support 50 construction jobs per annum. The council tax at the end of that scheme will be 605k per annum. And at the end of that, guess what? You get your money back, repaid with all the interest. So it's a real win-win in terms of housing delivery. Sorry, I should have said that's Winnie Hill, which is between Choppington and Guidepost, adjacent to Scotland Gate. Okay, that's my last slide. I'll now hand you over to Andrew Mowbray, who's the head of our project management team.
Thanks, Duncan. Morning, everybody. I'm going to run through a few slides to show some of the services provided and projects delivered by the developments team. Next slide, please. So this slide just shows some of the organisations and departments that we work with. As you can see there, it ranges from Active Northumberland, the Port of Blyth, to property services, regeneration and highways, to name a few from within the council. Next slide, please. So what do? Essentially, we offer a total project management service that is throughout the development cycle. So that will range from design management, planning, right through to the construction stage and supporting clients and end users to successfully occupy the building. The services throughout that cycle include everything from managing the budget through to risk management and quality control. And we do that across a number of different sectors that ranges from infrastructure, retail, commercial and regeneration. Next slide, please. So, of course, a lot of the work that we do is supporting the delivery of advanced Northumberland schemes. They are covered in other parts of the presentation today, so I'm going to really focus on the work we do for County Council led projects. Next slide, please. So the first sector to look at is leisure. This has become a real area of expertise over recent years. Started off with Ashington Leisure Centre, which has now been open for a few years, but we're currently delivering leisure projects in Berwick, Morpeth and Newbiggin, and the combined value of those is approximately £70 million. This latest programme started back in 2018, where we supported Active Northumberland to develop the briefs for the new centres, and since then we have put in place design teams. We've managed the design process, currently managing the build process and the quality control. Berwick Leisure Centre, the first phase of that opened in February this year. Morpeth will open early next year, and the refurbishment works at Newbiggin will open this summer. And so far, the feedback on those projects has been excellent. Next slide, please. Just looking at regeneration, so we're really working across the county supporting regeneration-led projects, everything from Blyth, Berwick and Ashington. We've developed a close working relationship with the Regeneration Directorate over that time. We've supported various funding bids, including the Blyth investment, and we're currently acting as a trusted advisor to the Energising Blyth programme team, and also providing project management services for specific project delivery. Next slide, please. So just taking a closer look at Blyth, we are providing project management and quality management services for the two flagship projects in that programme. The first one, Energy Central Learning Hub, That's a college and conferencing facility to be built at the Port of Blythe. And also the Culture Centre in Marketplace Blythe, which will be a cinema, a live performance and music venue. And we're working closely with the programme team there to manage the design process, including supporting the stakeholder consultation and developing the business cases throughout the development of the project. And then ultimately we'll move on to manage the construction phase and the handover of those buildings. So the Learning Hub, that should open next year, and the Culture Centre will open the following year. Next slide, please. So up to Berwick. So we're also leading the redevelopment of the Maltings Theatre and Cinema. That includes a pop-up cinema to be built at Berwick Barracks to allow us to close the existing facility. On that project, again, we've developed the brief with the Maltings Trust. We've procured the design team for the barracks part of the project, which is well underway, and we're leading that development with English Heritage and the ongoing master plan at the barracks. And we're currently managing the design competition to put a team in place to design the new Maltings. And then again, ultimately, we will manage the construction stage and the handover stage of those two related projects. The barracks works will complete next year, and the new Maltings takes us right through to 2025. Next slide, please. So we're also asked often to carry out just specific parts of the development cycle. So this often starts with site appraisals and feasibility studies, often to support potential inward investment or to kickstart funding bids. And again, we do this across the county. Various projects we've been involved in, Berwick Hospital, lots of work at Northumberland Energy Park supporting the investments there, works over at Hexham, and supported living projects in Blythe as well. And just onto the final slide for me, please. So just really to summarise the developments team, we've got a skilled and experienced team. We've now got a proven track record of delivering successful projects over a number of years. And we currently have a pipeline of around about £150 million of committed projects running to 2025 and beyond. So we feel we're well placed to continue to support Advance and Northumberland County Council to deliver new projects well into the future. Next slide, please. And if I can just pass on to Michael Black, Director of Economic Growth and Investments.
Thanks, Andrew. So obviously we've had a lot of slides, so I'm going to try and move from a canter to a romp to get us home. That's all right. So next slide, please. So economic growth and investments, it's a unique partnership within a broad team. We started out as investments. Investments had, well, economic growth was always there, but investments had a role very early on in the gestation of Arch and Advance in terms of acquiring the portfolio that Robin's identified and explained today. So that portfolio was predominantly based around industrial estates, business units, workspaces, and that was very much to support small to medium-sized enterprises. We then moved to a certain extent into retail, and there was obviously a large amount of retail. That was very much on behalf of the council, for the council. But our primary aim is to support small and local businesses. But as part of that portfolio, we did a few other things as well. We acquired quite a significant land portfolio, and that portfolio of land is what allows us to develop and increase the economic growth opportunities for Northumberland as a county. Next slide, please. So, what I thought I'd do, job done in terms of acquiring the portfolio, that generates the revenues that lets us do the work we do. But what does the land do? The land is probably the most integral part of our economic growth package, and with economic growth, who are there to attract and bring business in, investments is there to attract and transact to get these land deals in place, and obviously to secure the investments for Northumberland into Northumberland. So I'll take us through some of the key sites. What you're looking at is Northumberland Energy Park. Northumberland Energy Park, the site in the foreground is the former Blythe Power Station. The site further north of that is the phase, it's called Phase 3. We call it Northumberland Energy Park 3. That was the coal stocking yards for the power station. And the site to the left, Phase 2, is a site that we acquired from Wansbeck council as part of the local government reorganisation back in the day. So it's a legacy site, if you will, but an important employment site nonetheless. Now, I think in terms of looking at the slide there, what you have is a number of assets that were formed based upon the industrial strategy, because the coal that used to fire the power station to create the electricity, of course, that's no longer there. But the infrastructure that supports the supply of electricity and the distribution of it is still there. So that EDF energy, that little spot you see to the left-hand side of Net 1, that is the actual converter station for the offshore wind turbines that you see offshore. So when you look out to sea, from St Mary's Lighthouse, etc., you'll see an array of 5 wind turbines. That generates about 41 megawatts of power. That's about enough for 36,000 homes, just to give it some context. Now, bear that number in mind, because I'm going to move on to something quite significant as we move forward. So we're currently regenerating that and remediating that site, Net 1, and the whole purpose of that was to create a new dock to bring in industry supported or supporting the offshore wind sector. We saw as an integral part of what we do, especially on the back of Blythe's success in the estuary around having a lot of offshore wind activity there. But this was to create a much larger scale investment. Next slide, please. So how have we done that? On Net 1, we've managed to secure JDR cables. JDR cables are a cable manufacturer linked directly to offshore wind. They're currently based in Teesside, but this factory, massively supported by government, will create the first high-voltage cable manufacturing facility the UK has ever had. And that's a very, very important part of us getting involved in the offshore wind sector. When they brought out the industrial strategy for offshore wind, they recognised, the UK government recognised that the UK had very little manufacturing related to offshore wind. So they're starting to step that up. And you'll notice along the whole of the North East seaboard, an increased investment from Teesside all the way down to Blythe. And it's a very important part of what we do. JDR is £130 million of investment. It starts out about 170 jobs, high quality jobs, and that'll increase to about 400 jobs overall. Supported by the LEP, NCC and Advanced Northumberland, because that site's been quite costly to create and to provide a platform for development. But going forward, we can see this ever increasing in terms of employment and through the supply chain. Next slide, please. Now, if you recall, I told you about the offshore array. This is Northumberland Energy Park 2. And in the corner of Northumberland Energy Park 2, you'll see the North Sea Link interconnector. The NSL interconnector, what is it? It's a joint venture between Statnet and National Grid. It's about £1.5 billion. That investment links Norway and the UK. It allows us to send clean, green energy from the offshore wind farms out to Norway, and all that lovely hydropower that comes in to the UK centres here. And it's converted to go into the National Grid infrastructure network. Remember, I showed you on the previous slide. Now, that brings in about 1.4 gigawatts of power. That's enough power for 1.4 million homes throughout the UK. So it's distributed into Camas, distributed out of Camas, across the whole of the UK. Amazing project. And that, of course, power is most of our major industries are very power hungry. So if we move on to the next slide, mindful that British folk are about to present to you, and I've got Peter and Paul sitting behind me. Net 3 British Volt is probably one of the biggest investments in the UK, certainly last year. It is a game changer for Northumberland. This time last year, Peter and I were celebrating because we'd managed to get the land out from RWE into our ownership and pass that ownership onto British Volt. This is a 2.7 million square foot gigafactory. It's billions of pounds of investment, but fundamentally it's 3,000 jobs in Northumberland and considerably more through the supply chain. So we now have a real body of work to do to create more land for employment, to create a much bigger strategic employment land portfolio. That's all I'll say about that, other than it's been a real treat to work with such a dedicated company, very focused on what they're going to do. And of course, as you often see in the press, more and more steps forward in terms of partnerships and joint ventures. But this is a real game changer. This has moved us into the premiership in terms of economic growth and investment. It was the third largest planning application in the UK last year. And it was brought forward successfully in July by Rob and his team. And we've now got a consented site. Next slide, please. We have other strategic employment sites in Northumberland. And if you recall, I said that we spent a lot of our time acquiring these sites because they are fundamentally important to how we grow and increase our strategic employment land supply. Northumberland Business Park, Cramlington, we managed to get that back from a joint venture. That's currently got Canmore Developments with a planning application for a logistics centre. That's about £40 million of investment and about 300 new jobs. Ashford Business Park, that was again in a joint venture with Homes England. We bought that back in about 2018. We've immediately secured, because it's an enterprise zone, LEP funding, which we pay back through the business rates. We've got Eurogarages, who will be completing this year on a new scheme. We've got Contech, with a 60,000 square foot development plus 60,000 more, 100 new jobs. And of course, it's also the home of AkzoNobel, the world's most advanced paint manufacturing plant, and been this year. Wansbeck Business Park, that was the former Ashington Colliery. We acquired that from Homes England again. And you'll recall this weekend, the college announced a significant investment for a new college campus in Ashington Town Centre. And Wansbeck Business Park is the home of that. And we've only been able to do that because we own the land and we have control of it. But we've also brought new business on there. There's 2 new units that were built by us, and we've managed to develop more and more units that have now been fully let, and we're aiming to bring a lot more through. But that's more smaller scale. Ramparts in Berwick, it's another important enterprise zone site, and that's working really well. 2 sites we don't own, but still form part of our portfolio. West Hertford Business Park, that's owned by Homes England, but we are working with them to bring that forward for employment, following the adoption of the local plan. And Linefield Park, former Alcan, we know that's got some strong interest at the moment, that could provide quite a large amount of jobs and bring that site back into use. Next slide, please. So, as well as our strategic employment sites, we acquired a series of legacy sites from the council as part of LGR. And that was back in 2012, 2013. And we've had to work really hard to get these sites to come forward because we've had some challenging times. We've had challenging times with retail, massively challenging times with COVID. Nonetheless, we've carried on, despite that, to try and bring forward investment and to create place-making opportunities and investment opportunities for retail. Retail and leisure, still important employers. They still employ a lot of local people, and it does also mean there's a lot of investment. It's just as valid as your large-scale employment sites as well. So here we've got Amble Retail Park, site of a former food factory. We put the Amble in collection group to that. We own it. We collect the rent on that. It was built by our projects team. We put Morrison's in during the middle of COVID. So Morrison's in the middle of Amble means that all the people of Amble don't have to go to Alnwick, they don't have to go to Ashington to get their weekly shop, they can do it on their doorstep. And our job now is to finish off that retail park and to get some more investment into that. Next slide, please. Timeview Retail Park, Robin mentioned this. This was a site, former West Wylam Colliery. We acquired this from the council. We paid market value, of course. And what we had there was we owned the site. The Duke of Northumberland had the covenants. What do? We formed a joint venture. And this is probably one of our most successful retail parks because Prudhoe it's got a very important high street, but a lot of the people in Prudhoe are having to shop again outside of the county, going to Gateshead. This keeps the spend in the county, and you can see that's not a CGI, by the way. That's the actual park. So we managed to secure Aldi, we managed to secure B&M, we've got McDonald's on there as well, and there's 20,000 square feet currently under offer. And that's been a very, very successful scheme for the Tyne Valley. Next slide, please. Portland Park, Ashington. This was commenced way before we even were created, before Arch was created, before Advance. The council started this off with the North East Quarter. We completed the land assembly. We managed to secure the site for the £21 million leisure centre. And we've got the 3 plots that are there now, one of which has home bargains, which is, again, quite a large investment for a town centre. And that'll be opening later this month. And the other 2 sites, one of which we have the opportunity for a cinema, 6-screen cinema, and the other site will be a complementary site with retail. And alongside the cinema will be 2 restaurants. Next slide, please. Bedlington Town Centre. Well, this has been a journey. It's been a difficult one. We acquired the site from Tesco on the instructions of the council. Council funded that acquisition, and we were set in train to deliver through public sector intervention, but to deliver a private sector, a private investment scheme. And by that, I mean bring in private retailers, provide us with the revenue, which will give us the capital to build and build out the town centre. It has had a number of problems, widely publicised, but we are continuing on. We have secured Aldi. Aldi opened their store last year to much aplomb. It's very successful, and we're also aiming to complete the marketplace over the next 18 months. Next slide, please. Manor Walks, we acquired this in 2016, specifically on the instructions of the council. We own it. It's a very large investment. It still generates a lot of revenue, not just for Advance for Northumberland, but for the council as well through the financial mechanism that we operate under. But it is the centre of Cramlington. It is a massive centre. It's hugely successful in as much as that we've got a shopping centre, alongside which is the retail park. So it's not under a risk of having a retail park outside of its centre. The retail park was put in the centre. It also has the leisure centre, of course, and the cinema. It has a tremendous amount of footfall. It's hugely important for Cramlington, which, of course, is one of our industrial heartlands as well. Next slide, please. Alongside all the work we do in bringing in inward investment, we also have a very strong business support service. We've got strategic account management that looks after our large-scale businesses. We've got Business Northumberland that works with our SMEs and smaller scale. And we also aim to provide support for a lot of our rural businesses as well. I could go on a lot more, but I won't because of the time. But I will thank you for your time, and hopefully this has demonstrated what we do as a business and the multifaceted business that we are in supporting and providing key projects and delivering key projects in Northumberland for Northumberland. Thank you. Any questions for the team?
Well, thank you very much for that to all the speakers. We've had a very good overview of all the different exciting projects which are ongoing and have been delivered. Okay, well, members, do you have any questions? Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, everybody, for your presentation. I'm interested in asking a question of something that hasn't happened rather than something that has happened. However, let me tell you what happened first. It was way back, Chair. I recall the opposition leader to the government, Tony Blair, coming to the former Ashington Colliery site at Wansbeck Business Park. I recall the Wansbeck Hospital, Ashington Hospital, I should say, closing and becoming the new hospital, Wansbeck. And we discussed then, back in the 90s, relocating Northumberland College to the centre of Ashington, hopefully with a rail link reopening, regenerating Ashington Town. I read with the press last week, and I've heard a little bit said today, how this can happen soon by Northumberland College moving to a business park. In 1997, the Wansbeck District Local Plan emphasised employment at the business park. The 2007 Wansbeck District Local Plan emphasised employment at the business park. I'm very aware we've only just passed a new local plan at the county, and there's nothing site-specific within that local plan. But can I ask, do you feel confident that you will be able to put an educational establishment on an employment park? Thank you.
Okay, Rick, do you want to?
Yes, Chair. It is a good question, actually, but I think the first thing to remember is that it is not for the council to determine the site that the college actually takes. They approached Advance about that site. I understand that they did look at alternatives, but this was the best alternative for them, and it's close enough to the town centre to have the beneficial impact on the town centre. There's a spin-off benefit to actually having a college surrounded by employers and the potential feedback between the businesses and the college and its students as well, so they can perhaps get a better feel for the world of work. I would like to have kept it for pure employment use, Ashwood, but the college needed a location. The existing site wasn't suitable for redevelopment, so this was the best available to keep the college there in Ashington.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I'll be very careful with my questioning, being on strategic planning myself, but I felt as if that would be examined. And can I say, as I emphasised before, even 20 years ago, we were talking about the benefits of the college being in the centre of Ashington rather than where it currently is. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thanks. I would just like to emphasise, I mean, bear in mind we've got currently about 200 hectares of employment land, and we're looking to increase that considerably. The college the proposal is to use just over 2 hectares of the employment land that we have. And of course, the advantage that Wansbeck Business Park has, is its proximity to the town centre. And there isn't another site currently in the town centre that could facilitate such an opportunity as this, which is time limited. So if we don't secure the site, then that funding could be lost. And I think it's important that we manage to be able to pivot just a small amount of our employment land to secure a much large-scale investment, which does link to employment, because the education, of course, is an important part of making sure our workforce are skilled and have the qualifications to enter the workplace.
Nick?
Thank you, Chair. That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you very much. And it's great to actually see the scope of the work that you're doing and the real difference it's making to people of Northumberland and to our economy, and the future looks very bright. And particularly in South East Northumberland, Cramlington, Ashington, the Blythe Estuary, all mentioned a lot, and it's really, really positive. Can I just turn the focus slightly to the west and ask about Hexham and what obviously there's a great development just completing in Hexham. The new hotel's about to open, the little store and car parking. But is there any sort of movement on town centre development? And also, could I ask that perhaps we make this an annual event, and that you come back in a year's time and give us an update on the things that are happening? Perhaps it's only 83 slides this time, but it would be, because that was really fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, yes, we'll come back in a year's time. We've invited you, of course. Of course, I think it's good to dispel some of the myths around the company. Hexham, I guess Councillor Oliver's referring to the bus station site on Priestpopple. That is, it's a demonstration of why the local authority gaining ownership of a site is of prime importance, the local authority, or its creature, in this case, Advance. We don't own that site. The developer that owns it cannot come up with a viable scheme, so they're just going to sit on it. We continue to discuss with them potential acquisition of the site. The planners at this point in time are developing a mini development brief which will define what is acceptable in planning terms on that site. I will then reopen negotiations with the developer on that. And that's being done in parallel with design work being done on the middle school site above it, because I think it's important that the whole of those link through into the town centre. And we still have a demonstrable need in the town centre, Chair, for a supported living facility, and that may form part of that. So it's actively under consideration, even though it's difficult because of the private owner, who has aspirations for the value, shall we say, that we don't share.
Paul?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for an excellent presentation, actually. It personally gave me a holistic picture of what Advanced Northumberland is doing. Even though I was familiar with bits and pieces, it was really good. A question is that some of the things you do you have any risk assessment strategy, management strategy, because we are facing a kind of a cost of living crisis, and we are building leisure centers, town centers and everything, whether they will become economically viable in the short term? Do you have any assessment strategy? And also, are you likely to revise some of the projects if cost of living crisis hits us? Because we in Cramlington are looking forward to Challenger Learning Centre that will come. Are these projects will be in jeopardy in the long term? Any idea you can give at the moment?
Thank you, Chair. I'll kick that off to start with. Yes, we're living in an uncertain world on the costings front and cost of living, and it is something we are monitoring. For instance, where we feel things may bite very quickly, of course, is for our tenants on the residential side of things. And we do keep a very close eye and have good communications with our tenants. However, like everybody else, we're subject to the ill winds, if you like, of the economy that we face at the moment. In terms of our projects on the leisure centre side, our role in the leisure centres is very much the project management. We're doing it on behalf of Active and the council. So we have an active dialogue with our key stakeholders there, and like any other project, we will continue to assess what the costs are and what the impact will be. So I suppose, yes, we're not immune from the world, and we do keep an eye on.
Challenger Leisure Centre is still will be pursued, you think? It's not the Leisure Centre, Learning Centre, Challenger Learning Centre in Cramlington. So that is kind of a project we are promoting silently within the Cramlington area. So that will be a good game changer for kids, especially doing education. So that will be wonderful. So if that project is not axed, we would be very, very grateful.
I will ask Michael. I think has got a better.
That, Chair, actually would not be an advanced project. That would be a county council project. Advanced may be asked to deliver it. So we'd have to have those discussions with colleagues in children's services to find out where they are on that one. I'm not actually aware of that, and we're starting to open negotiations with the Cramlington members over the blueprint for Cramlington, as they've chosen to call it.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yes. So it may come out of that. So I think that we need to park that and talk to another part of the council, Chair.
Okay, yeah. Okay, Liz?
Thanks, Chair. I've got a couple of questions. The first one is from Councillor Murphy, who is unable to be here today. So if you bear with me, I'll just read it out, but it is very small print on my phone. So just, when that's finished, if I could come back with one of my own. So this is from Councillor Murphy, and I'll quote her email. It says, "I was thrilled to read the plans by the company to locate a hub on Ashington Main Street, which will be both visible and accessible to the community. This is exactly the kind of high-profile development this area needs. In light of this, I hope you will understand my comments in seeking to improve rather than criticising, but it is important. I was disappointed to see that your board does not have a single woman on it. For a 21st century company, surely this is very unusual. As your management team, your management team is less than 20% made up of women. How can you reassure me that you aspire to be a 21st century employer and to encourage female applicants into this industry? Apprentices and graduates, as well as every other employment opportunity, should be open to all, but proactive employers have been shown to be better at this than those who are passive in this regard. I wish you every success." And that is from Councillor Murphy.
Okay, well, Rick, can you answer for that one?
If I start, and I might hand over to Robin for a little bit more detail, Chair. The hub on Ashington Main Street, again, that is not an actual project yet, in actual fact, and it's certainly not an advanced project. This is one of the key projects which has come out of the forming part of the Ashington Town Plan, which is the plan that's being put together by a partnership which will form the basis of the bid to government for Levelling Up Fund, if it's been approved. And it is for a hub to be developed, I think it's with the YMCA perhaps, around the Wansbeck Square, which will be totally flattened and alongside the new station. But it is a great idea, and I know the Ashington Town Board is meeting today, I believe, which is why the Deputy Leader can't be here, to actually look at those proposals. Turning to the 21st century, I'm just reminded of a song there by King Crimson, about the company. We actually do have 2 board members who are women at the moment, so I'm not quite sure where Councillor Murphy's got that from. And Councillor Murphy, I understand, is to join the board herself. So we will have 3 board members who are women. So unless she may be thinking of the Ashington Town Board, I'm not quite sure, and it's not clear. And I couldn't comment on that, but I think she means Advance, and we do have 2, it will shortly be 3 board members who are women. I know that our head of communications, which is a very senior post within the company, is a young woman. But I'll hand over to Robin to see if he's got any more detail on that to Councillor Murphy's concerns.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's an important issue, it's an important question, so in her absence, but I thank Councillor Murphy for raising that. Yeah, at our senior team, currently it's a quarter female across our senior leadership team. But I think what we recognise as a company is that we work principally in real estate and development, which, right or wrongly, has traditionally been seen as quite a male-dominated industry. We're doing what we can to change that. We've got a number of absolute rising stars in our company who are female, and we're investing in them through what we call career pathways. So it's mapped out to invest in their education, training and experience to give them a route upwards within the company. Overall within the company, I think we employ 48% women, 52% men at the moment, so it's pretty evenly split. But recognising that the future, we've got to do what we can to promote proactively opportunities for everybody. Indeed, 2 of our rising stars are very heavily involved in a forum called Women in Construction, which hopefully spreads the word and tries to attract more talented people into this sector from sort of women, not just men. So it is something we are aware of, and we're trying very hard to buck the trend of the industry in which we operate. So hopefully that can give you a little bit of comfort in that direction.
Thank you very much. Liz, have you one question?
Yes, thanks. And I'm sure Councillor Murphy will be listening to that reply and come back to you when she is actually sitting on the board. So there we go. My own question, obviously the Ellington housing development is within my own ward and currently is moving on to phase 3, I believe. I do welcome the fact that this next phase will include more affordable housing. We're lucky to get the 28 in the last couple of phases. So this 22, can I just ask how many are rental and how many are affordable to buy properties? But I think it's true to say, however, we do welcome those properties, but I think it's still true to say that Ellington residents will still argue that the infrastructure doesn't quite meet the size of that development. You know, the doctor, surgery, particularly schools. And I know this year we've had quite a lot of children who, there's much more children in Ellington for schools. And I'm going to bring it up again. I know I did it at the NALC one, and obviously Ellington residents welcomed that retail development that came about, but that development had a really negative effect on neighbouring Linemouth. So my question really is, do you think Advance has a role going forward in how it helps our smaller and more rural communities to actually remain sustainable?
Well, I'll ask Duncan first to, if that's right, Chair, to pick up on the, you raised a question about the nature of the affordable at Ellington.
Yeah, sure. So on the affordable, I hate to say the answer is I don't know, because the discussions are ongoing. So they will be relative to perceived demand by our partner, and that is very likely to be Benicia, who are our partner in terms of affordable housing. I suspect there'll be rental, is what I suspect. Okay. In terms of, I should probably just clarify, I tried to do it on the slide because of previous discussions questions between myself and Councillor Dunn, that the co-op, just to be very clear, is nothing to do with Advance in that it was an agreement between Harworth, the developer whose name escapes me, and the co-op. And it is an unfortunate consequence, which I believe the retailer made previous promises in terms of the co-op store in Linemouth, and unfortunately that's now closed, which has caused issues in that area, and I can understand that. In terms of the infrastructure, obviously, we build houses and we meet the Section 106 obligations as deemed by the council during the planning process. I don't know if that was actually necessarily a question for me. But yeah, I mean, there will be 350 new homes in that location. And the last question was...
There's a question about, I think, our work in smaller towns.
Yeah, I can answer that in terms of, from a residential perspective, we're currently on site in Wooler. We're about to start site in the next few months in Bellingham. We've got planning on a scheme in East Ord, and we're looking at schemes throughout rural Northumberland, some of which aren't secure yet, so it's commercially sensitive. What we probably what we're trying to do in those locations is actually about private sale, cross-subsidising affordable units where there is a lack of affordable units in rural Northumberland, and understand there's particular issues. Rick mentioned particular issues at the minute in Amble, and we're certainly looking at a site there currently. So we are aware of it from a residential perspective, and we going forward you will see more rural sites from us. That's undoubtedly going to be the case.
Thanks, thanks, Duncan. I mean, I wasn't going to name the retail operator, to be honest, but never mind. There, you did it for us. The last bit, that wasn't really the question that I was getting at. It was, do you think Advance has a role in helping little villages? And I'll put it as Linemouth specifically, because that's what I'm talking about. You know, we've lost the shops, we've lost this, we've lost that. Has it got a role in helping these little villages to stay sustainable? I know we've built a lot of houses just down the road, but how can we help that particular place stay sustainable and not deteriorate further? Is really the question. And it might be a council answer, I don't know.
It's a very difficult question. We have had the discussion about this. It's not fundamentally the role of Advance to do this. It would be for the council to try to come up with ways to encourage the sustainability of that and many other little communities. And then if we had a solution, we would ask Advance to implement that if that seems appropriate. But Advance acting on its own, it is a company, it needs to wash its face and ideally make a profit on behalf of the council. So it can only really pursue commercial opportunities. And as we know, the problem in Linemouth at the moment is that there is not a commercial opportunity. So it's down to the council on that one, Chair.
And I think obviously sustainability is one of the major things in the local plan we've just passed. So that is something that we are alive to. Right. Do we have any more questions? Oh, sorry, Malcolm, sorry, was next. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. A few questions. Duncan, we've just touched on it, but my question is all affordable housing units go to social housing providers?
The ones we build, yes, and the reason being for that because we are not a registered provider of social housing. Yeah. There's no intention to be so. So we the first port of call is actually Northumberland County Council's RP. We have worked with Benicia and will do in the future again. And that's just because we work well with them. They're the locally based RP, I guess, largest one.
Thank you. And so, Rick, is Advance the preferred partner for the £48 million we've just seen in the budget for new social housing in the county?
Not necessarily, but we have had discussions with my schizophrenic head on here. I've been talking to myself, but we have had discussions internally with Liz Morgan, who's the Exec Director for Housing, about how we can, as the two organisations, deliver a large part of that affordable housing. And that would also involve bringing into play the council's land holdings as well. So it makes a lot of sense as to work more closely in that respect.
Good. It seems to make a lot of sense, the synergy we've got there. And of course, we can insist they're fit for purpose. They're built with modern building techniques and they've got all the insulation and everything we need going forward. Couple for Robin. You said commercial's never been busier. Where are the hotspots? because we've got quite a large county, you know, it's obviously not all busy up and down the county, but there must be some hotspots where there.
Well, it's across our industrial portfolio. We've never had occupancy higher in the history of the portfolio. So really everywhere that we've got industrial units, there seems to be a strong demand at the moment. I think what's quite promising as well is at the smaller end, smaller sort of workshop factory space, seems to be particular demand at the moment, which has got to be an encouraging sign for the sort of future growing businesses in the county.
Yeah, definitely. And my last question really is to you again, Robin. How autonomous is Advance?
We are a company, and like all companies, we are run by a board. We work very, very closely with the council, as you would expect, and Rick's, I think, very already described his dual role. And we are obviously working all the time on behalf of the council. There are certain decisions in our constitution, which is a public domain document, which we have to get rubber stamped by the council itself to make sure we're aligned. But I think we work very, very closely with the council, but on a day-to-day basis, we are run autonomously, so can be hopefully more commercial and fleet of foot than the council can be itself.
I'm just asking for a couple of reasons, but basically, you know, we heard you return 13 million annually to the council on interest rate charges, and I know the rate you're paying, and you could get better than that in the private marketplace. The reason I'm asking about it is, if you see an opportunity, can you go for it with your own funding, or do you have to come back to council and ask for permission to go for it, basically?
It would depend on the opportunity. If it's a significant opportunity, purchase of land, whatever, yes, we would need to come back to the council to agree that was appropriate. But you know, we've I think we've got currently a very good working relationship, not just with Rick, but with Jan in the finance team as well. So you know, teamwork.
Good, yeah, excellent presentation, thank you.
Alex, you had another question?
Chair, firstly, thank you for letting me come back in again. I really would like to thank Advance for their presentation. I did so as chairman of NALC, and it was just so enjoyable. I remember coming here saying, can we get them, and you informing me you had them booked. That was excellent. I'd like to firm up a question that I asked then, but I think it has relevance on the presentation today. We've seen a lot, we can't emphasise enough about the employment opportunities that's coming to Northumberland, particularly in my ward of Sleekburn at Camas. Camas, Sleekburn, not Blythe, Sleekburn, Camas. The other thing that needs to be hammered home is Ascent Homes build the houses that we ask them to. We are the designers. We are where those houses should be, where we want them. Our next presentation is from British Fault. Let's have those homes built that become affordable to live in, not affordable homes, affordable to live in, as you've demonstrated elsewhere with heat source pumps. Let's have them as close to possible as British Fault. Winning Hill is good. Closer would be better. Camas would be brilliant. New Biggin would be applauded by Liz Simpson. That's the certainty of that when that site's developed. But can we look at that and let's have people walking to work, cycling to work, instead of having to build a £40 million bypass, which is what we're doing in Blythe. Let's have it together. Let's make it sustainable. Let's make it carbon free. Let's meet the target, and let's make life happier for everyone, Chair. It's a request rather than a question. Thank you.
Well, I think we'd all echo the sentiments, and yes, I think joined up thinking is important. I think that we've seen a very good demonstration of that today, and I think that segues very nicely into British Vault coming to present now. So if we're happy members, I think, well, thank you very much to the Advance team. You're very welcome to stay if you wish to listen. And we'll now welcome British Volt, which is the next item on the agenda. So, well, thank you very much for coming. We're very pleased that you've decided to come and sort of give us a summary of where you are, what you're doing, and just emphasising the exciting project that you're sort of now delivering in our county. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for inviting us here today. I'm Peter Rolton, Executive Chair of British Volt. I'm joined by Charlotte Coley, my Executive Officer, and Paul Franklin, who's Property Director for British Volt. We do have some slides as well, actually. We thought we'd do a little bit of an update and just... we're very conscious that we rushed into buying a site and getting planning permission. We thought we'd take the opportunity to explain a little bit more about the business, actually, and do a bit of backfilling as to what we're actually doing and what we hope to achieve for the benefit of the committee. Delighted to be back here. I was brought up in this area, which you've probably heard me say too many times on various interviews in the press and on the radio. Prior to British Volt, last time I was in this building was 1983, and I was looking for a lost student grant cheque, so which never did turn up, by the way, but never mind. So without further ado, we'll move on. Next slide, please. Okay, and next one. So British Volt. So when we first engaged with NCC and with Advance, which was back in the back quarter of 2020, which seems a long time ago now, it isn't really. We were just a handful of people, and since then the company has grown at, I think, what can best be described as an exponential rate. We are now nearly 200 full-time employees with a very experienced, very senior management team, an extremely experienced research and development team, all of whom have got a long track record in manufacturing, R&D, batteries. It is truly, present company accepted, a world-class team that is going to deliver this project and will be transformational, we hope, for the area. Some names there that you might recognise, but all of those are very senior executives. Next slide, please. So why are we doing batteries and why are we doing them in Camis, not Blythe, as I am continually reminded? Thank you, Alex. Okay. Well, there's three principal failures in the European and North American battery market. The first one is nobody bothered to plan for it, so it's kind of just sort of happened, really. The various government institutions looking to meet carbon agendas have focused in very quickly on the internal combustion vehicle and repeatedly brought forward the end of internal combustion vehicle sales. So as of 2030 in the UK, you will not be able to buy an internal combustion vehicle for the road. You will not be able to buy a hybrid one from 2035. Now, those timescales might seem a long way off, but in the automotive world, they're extremely short. Automotive manufacturers plan their model programs, they plan their R&D out 20, 30 years in advance. All of a sudden, all of that's had to change. So they're all scurrying around, reorganising themselves to go into full EV and cancelling internal combustion vehicle programs. That is combined then also with some other harsh economics. Dr. Ralph Speth, the then chairman of Jaguar Land Rover, said famously to Theresa May that batteries come to cars or cars goes to batteries. Now, what did he mean? What he meant was that the combustion engine in a vehicle is probably about £2,500 at cost to the manufacturer. Now, if you actually take the battery pack, it's more like £8,000 or £10,000. So if you bring that battery pack all the way from Asia or China and you put it in a vehicle and then export the vehicle from the UK, there's not enough added value in the manufacturing process. The maths simply don't work. So just normal supply chain drag will drag all your automotive manufacturing out of the UK and it all goes east. So that was obviously clearly not acceptable to UK government. So they then set up a task force to look at trying to change that, which of course is what kicked off the whole Gigafactory impetus in the UK. There's another factor as well in all of this, which is the UK-EU 27 trade deal, and that has a thing about what's called local rules of origin or rules of content. And after 2026, 2027, you've got to meet thresholds for the amount of local content in a car that's manufactured in the UK. If you bring the battery pack from China and you put it into a vehicle in the UK or in Europe, you will have breached that rules of origin and there's a 10% tariff on the whole vehicle. So you've got several things that are actually making you absolutely have to make the battery in the UK or in Europe. That is inevitable because of the trade rules and it's inevitable because of the changes in legislation. The only problem is no one planned to build enough factories to meet any of this, okay? So by 2030, as you'll see from the slide presentation there is a huge shortfall of gigafactory capacity heading into view. And already some of the car manufacturers are already making representations about, oh, it's going to be too tough, where am I going to get my batteries from? We're fairly unsympathetic to that, as you might expect, okay? To fill our factory, and bearing in mind we've increased the size of the factory in terms of capacity that we plan to build in Camas. From originally we talked about 30 gigawatt hours installed capacity. We've now upped that to 55 gigawatt hours of installed capacity by putting another production line in it. That represents only 4% of the European requirements by 2030. That's what we've got to capture as a market share to fully sell it out. It represents only 15% of the current inquiries we already have, okay, from automotive manufacturers. So we are very confident that once we get going, we are going to sell it and we are going to fill it, and then we'll probably need to look for another one somewhere, okay, because the demand is absolutely going to be there. The other principal failure in the market here is the differentiation around product. The batteries that come at the moment out of our competitors in the Far East are very much sort of one size fits all. They're so busy, they haven't really got into differentiation in terms of performance, and their offering is very much, do you want to buy it, do you not want to buy it? Now, that's not what the European manufacturing base is actually looking for. If you are buying an expensive Range Rover or a Mercedes or a BMW, you do not want it to drive like a Fiat Panda, okay? You want to be able to have a different performance experience, and that means you need a different battery, and it means you don't want the same batteries in the same vehicle. So very much we're focused on that high-end premium sector, which supports the European car manufacturers and the UK car manufacturers. And then separately and bizarrely, the other end of the market for us is light commercial, which is very neglected at the moment. Light commercial is a different requirement entirely in terms of range, cycles, charge cycles, and how long the battery will last, because in that marketplace it's not about sports car performance, although most white van drivers would like it to be. It's more about pence per mile and how long the product's going to last. So again, that's another completely different sector, and those are the two sectors which initially we are focusing on. There's a third part to what we're trying to do, and that's the ESG and carbon agenda. At the moment, you can buy an electric vehicle with batteries, again, coming out of the Far East or even from Poland, that have got a coal-fired grid. Now, the battery manufacturing process uses a phenomenal amount of energy, okay? Those factories out in the Far East use typically somewhere in the order of 50 gigawatt hours of energy to produce 1 gigawatt hour of battery capacity. We with our factory, which will be much more advanced, will get that down to about 20. But if you are doing that using fossil fuel sources, you are packing a phenomenal amount of carbon into that battery, okay? So typically you would then need to drive about 40,000 miles in your electric vehicle plugged into an entirely renewable source just to get the carbon out of the battery before you even start trying to save the planet, okay? So actually having a battery factory that is plugged into renewable energy is extremely important if you are serious about trying to achieve what we want to achieve in terms of net 2050 goals, and also having a local supply chain. So, next slide, please. So you won't be surprised to hear me say all of those things are exactly where BV's going. We're going into best-in-class battery manufacturing technology in terms of our products, with our world-class team that we've assembled to produce new ranges of designs of batteries, new chemistries and new cell formats, one of which we're going to be announcing in a couple of months later on this year, which is really, really exciting product. Cost competitive, yeah, we will be cost competitive because we will be using renewable energy, because we will be actually bringing our supply chain locally, and we're going to be using the most advanced manufacturing techniques and technology that's currently out there in the marketplace. We will be ethically sourcing our materials. I've been asked 1 or 2 times about, how many child labourers we're going to employ in the Congo. Needless to say, the answer to that is none, because we will be holding all our supply chain and our supply partners to the same ESG standards that we will actually have as a business, and that will flow right the way through from end to end. And we will also be doing battery recycling as well. So you may have seen that we've announced an initiative called British Loop with our partners Glencore. That will be a recycling facility for batteries to be deactivated, ground up, the minerals extracted. By 2030, we need to get to a situation where we have somewhere in the order of 70 or 80% of battery minerals coming out of batteries that have already had a life. One of the things about switching to this next green revolution electric vehicles is we cannot make the mistakes of the previous industrial revolution of coal and carbon and gas, which is simply to dig it all up and set fire to it and then think we've been very clever with ourselves. Reality is we have to get into a proper recyclable situation here with these products. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we've started here with what we call surface mobility or e-mobility. That's the initial starting point for British Volt. It is not the 2050 vision. Our 2050 vision is sustainable, clean, renewable energy storage mediums, which means we will go into different technologies in due course. The performance products that we're working on at the moment eventually will also take us into next generation light aircraft, helicopters, drones, and vertical take-off transport pods and such like for city centres. That will be where we go with that light, high-performance technology. At the other end, we'll go down into the grid balancing, heavy storage on the grid, as we add more and more renewables to our grid and take away what's known as spinning reserve. You put nature in the driving seat. Putting nature in the driving seat is great, but it means you've got some big peaks and troughs in terms of your power generation. The only way to sensibly deal with that is storage, and right now that means lots and lots of lithium-ion batteries on the grid. You've also got heavy machinery. Again, the focus at the moment initially has been on cars like commercials, buses. Heavy commercial, heavy machinery, probably in conjunction with hydrogen, will be part of the offering. And eventually you've got shipping there as well. Already ports are still starting to talk now about last mile delivery, being on electric power coming into port and having to turn off the diesel engines as you come in. So ships also becoming effectively hybrid vehicles with static storage on them as well. Next slide, please. Okay, we have had the benefit in the UK of being able to tap into the work that UK Gov did around creating a R&D ecosystem. Warwick University, Warwick Manufacturing Centre, Oxford University, UK BIC, which is the UK Battery Industrialisation Centre at Coventry, and Imperial College. We've been able to work with those as a British company, and it's enabled us to very rapidly prototype and validate our designs. And in the case of Imperial College, they have a digital twin product which is uniquely available to us as a British company, which means we can actually design batteries in virtual reality and test them before we actually have to go to the trouble of making one to find it doesn't work. We can make sure we know it's going to before we actually hit the chemistry set, and that's been absolutely vital to us. Also, we're working with the local university as well. We have jointly signed an agreement with Newcastle, Durham, and of course my favourite, because I'm hopelessly biased, having been there, Northumbria, as indeed was Charlotte. We are proud alumni, okay? And we're working with all of those as well now in terms of looking at courses. One of the challenges for the area, for the North East and for Northumberland, is actually now to create its own battery ecosystem around the R&D, the products, and also very much the material science, because batteries are basically a giant chemistry set of very advanced materials and chemicals, and it's how you process and deal with those is the other part of the big part of the jigsaw. Okay, next slide, please. Right, I'm now going to shamelessly plug Advanced Northumberland, okay, and make Michael blush, okay, all right? Because one of the reasons we are here, and one of the reasons that British Volt has been able to grow so quickly and get on with things, is the work that we did with Advanced in trying to secure and successfully securing this site from RWE. It is the best Gigafactory site in the UK by an absolute comfortably mile. We realised it, Michael realised it, we managed to buy it before anybody else did, okay, which was great, all right? And then also we managed to get into planning, and with the help of the team here, with Rod's team, get planning delivered very, very quickly as well, which again has enabled us to really start and push on now and scale the business and start to get ready for the full construction and the manufacturing process. There's a good point made earlier about post-industrialisation assets and legacy. This has got a deep water port, It's got a massive grid connection. It's got the interconnector next door. It's even got 3 boreholes left over from the penicillin factory that used to be there after the war. And it's got a railway as well. So if you are playing that game SimCity and you wanted to design the perfect Gigafactory site, it would not look very different to this, I can assure you. Okay. So from that point of view, being able to tap into these assets has been absolutely fantastic. We are shortly to exchange contracts on the railhead, which runs down the side of the site. There was a mention there, actually, Alex, you asked about transportation. Okay, you know what I'm going to suggest? When we buy the railhead, you should put a station in. Okay, all right, and then we can have a station there next to the beach and a station there for people to come to work as well. Okay, and that would be also be, I think, quite transformational for Camas as well. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, that's the factory itself. That is an artist's impression, obviously. It's built in 2 main buildings and 4 phases. People have asked me, well, why has it got a big bit down the middle? That's for several reasons. First of all, such is the size of that building, if you get out the front door and go for a walk around it at lunchtime, it's 1.3 miles, okay? That means if you adopt the traditional model of putting all the services at one end, right, by the time you're trying to run your pipes from the back to the front and back again, okay, it's a kilometre. So with that point, with a lot of the servicing is done from the side in those modules that sit in the gap there. That's because things like the electrolyte that goes into the battery does not travel well. It actually goes off on the journey and isn't much use by the time it gets there. So we've adopted a different solution. The other reason is a fire break. Okay, it means that it protects us from ever having a total loss. Not that we are planning to have a fire. And yes, we have got numerous firewalls, and yes, we are fully sprinkler protected. Okay, but it is part again of the insurance and just risk analysis of building the building sensibly. In terms of how we will build it, we will build the 2 buildings, one after the other. A will be first, needless to say, followed by B. But in our first phase of construction, we are going to do all the infrastructure. So all the roads, car parks, drains, etc. all go in. But also, and with apologies already to the residents of Camas for the amount of piling we're going to do, we will be putting all the powered foundations in for both phases as well. That means that when we want to build building B, we do not have to bring back all the heavy civil engineering works and piling rigs for 2 good reasons. First of all, the floors inside buildings are extremely flat and rigid. The equipment that goes in there is phenomenally expensive. It is incredibly sensitive. We're working in microns. It's all laser leveled. It's all nicely lined up and calibrated. And then the last thing you want is someone next door with a piling rig building building 2, okay, because it'll send it all out of calibration. So for that reason, all the foundations go in 1, and then in building B, when that is built, we'll simply have the piling cap sat there with the bolts sticking out the ground. We can drop the steel frame on and scale the building very, very quickly. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we mentioned energy efficiency, and this will be by far the most energy efficient gigafactory anyone has ever made. It has, for start off, got no gas supply. We have kicked gas completely out of it entirely. It's the only gigafactory I'm aware of anywhere in the world that is not using a substantial amount of gas. The reason that gas is used in these buildings is because we have things called clean and dry rooms in them. I think there's perhaps a bit of misnomer about what the inside of one of these factories looks like. I think people think it might be sort of like a lead foundry or something like that. It is nothing like that. It is very high tech. It's a cross between pharmaceuticals and high tech electronics. The clean rooms inside there are HEPA filtered, and the moisture content is taken down to the equivalent of -40, -50 degrees centigrade. So it's incredibly dry. The temperature is not at -40, -50, okay? It's at normal room temperature, but it's very, very dry. The reason for that is because the jelly roll coating inside the battery is incredibly absorbent to moisture. If it absorbs moisture, it doesn't work, right? So literally, you've got to build this stuff in a sort of atmosphere that's drier than the Sahara Desert. That takes a lot of energy to dry the air. So people tend to use gas. We're not using gas. We've opted to use a very advanced carbon dioxide heat pump solution, which recycles a lot of the energy. And you'll see that our energy rate in here are actually down at -6. So we're actually carbon negative. So we are actually saving carbon with the building running compared to when it's not running. Okay, next slide, please. There's some mention earlier about the wider plans here, and this is indicative, okay? But we are working with Advanced and with the council here on the need for a supplier park. Now, the supplier park piece is interesting. We originally thought that we would probably get some interest once we had the factory built, and in fact, far from it, because we are building our own renewable energy grid for the factory, which will be connected to the interconnector, also be connected to the offshore wind farms that we talked about earlier. This will mean that we can actually supply not only our factory, but actually all the supplier park as well, 100% renewable energy at a very attractive price, much cheaper than they would get it at normal retail grid prices. This means we've made it the ideal destination for multiple businesses to wish to come and co-locate with us. And we have a long list, okay, which we can't discuss in public, but we can discuss with the leader in private. And those businesses are looking to co-locate. Some of those are European co-locations. They're looking for destinations in Europe. The aim here, again, we're working with the Office of Lord Grimstone, the Minister for Trade, is that this supplier park would have the capability to support not just our gigafactory, but other gigafactories in the UK as well, in terms of size, scale and capacity. The point being here, we do not wish to end up in the situation we have currently with, say, semiconductors for vehicles, where you can't get the things made because you're waiting for something to come from another country. So the intention here is to be able to use all the components at a capacity for the UK to be fully self-sufficient in terms of its lithium-ion battery capacity manufacturing as a strategic asset. So not only will Camas be on the map for this, be on the map as a strategic asset as well of the UK. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, back to other matters, and we're back now to Ashington High Street, which was mentioned earlier as well. Okay, we are now the proud owners of the former M&Co department store. Okay, to which you may be asking, what did we want to buy that for? Well, the reality is this will be our training hub for the British Vault Future Generation Foundation. One of the things that we realised coming back into the area, and I personally realised, having been brought up here, is, you know, the amount of investment that it needs, particularly in places like Camas and Blyth. We have post-industrialisation. So we've had a phenomenal amount of interest in employment, both from people who are have existing skills, but a lot of people that haven't got skills, all right? And some of whom have got, you know, better, more educational needs as well. So we took a decision very early, and bearing in mind the commitment we gave to the council in the 106 agreement around prioritising local employment, apprenticeships and work placements, that we would try not to say no to people. And really the British Vault Future Generation Foundation is around that commitment. So this is set up as a registered charity. When people come and ask us for a job or come and apply to us, if they need more training before they can enter what you would call a typical British Vault training programme, which we will be running in conjunction with Northumberland College, around things like machine operator type qualifications, they will come to the foundation. The foundation will run everything from basic reading, writing, literacy, drug, alcohol programmes, ex-offender, charity, you know, rehabilitation. And in the basement, because there's a basement there as well, it's actually 4-storey, that's going to be fitted out as a learning centre for school children, okay, based principally around the road to net zero, zero carbon technologies, and supporting the work they do in school, and also trying to find our future STEM champions that we can sort of hoik out and whisk off to university as well. So we're going to do a whole range of things with this building, but its primary function will be actually helping get people back into employment. So the charitable purpose is pathways to employment. British Vault has bought the building. British Vault will pay for the refurbishment of it, and it will be rented for £1 to the charity. And then it will operate as an independent organisation. We're also using it to give management experience to the junior executives in British Vault. So people like my colleague Charlotte here sits on the board with me chairing it, and that will be a learning experience for them as well. And as I say, we purchased that now. We're just currently gearing up now to start a refurbishment programme on it. Next slide. Okay, and this is really back to what I said earlier. So we have made a commitment to apprenticeships. We are also pushing on and have insisted that our builders and our mechanical services contractors who are working on the factory also take on apprentices, and are doing so as part of the construction of the factory. conscious there that even though these people won't come and work for British Volt, if we manage to generate another 30, 40 plumbers, electricians in the Camis area, then you've got another 30, 40 people that have got a better earning capacity than they had before they started. So that's important to us as well. Graduates, I'm personally very keen on getting graduates into employment. Charlotte here again has a Masters in Law and a First Class Honours from Newcastle, from Northumbria. She works for my executive office. She's been mentored in executive career in British Volt. All the senior executives in British Volt have employed graduates as their executive assistants with a view to mentoring them and taking them forward and developing them into their careers. And then PhD as well. Again, we're now looking at sponsoring a number of PhDs with those universities in the North East, particularly targeted around the sorts of things that we need to do. We already have Northumbria University engaged on a piece of groundbreaking mathematical modelling software using some very, very scary maths and stuff I only pretend to understand around how you actually optimise the sizing of static storage to fit onto the grid. Okay, I'm going to stop there and invite some questions.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation. It was it's very good to see all the demand there that you've identified, and I think it's great that you've decided that the perfect SimCity site is here in Northumberland, and you know, we are very glad that you're taking this forward. So, members, do we have any questions? John?
Thanks, Chair. Apologies for having me back to you. Excellent presentation. I think we'll all agree this is fantastic for the local community of Northumberland. Have you planned for in the future for obviously performance batteries, but heavy goods vehicles? I know there's a problem with the technology at the moment, but things move so quickly. What's the plans for this?
So the problem for heavy goods vehicles is primarily one of energy density. The thing to think here is that the battery of today is not the battery of tomorrow. I mean, you think back to the first Nissan Leaf that rolled off the production lines, it did about 70 to 90 miles. The current one does 200, 250. By the end of this, in the end of this decade, you'll be getting 500 or 600 miles probably out of what I would call a normal sort of family hatchback. So there you're starting to get amount of energy embedded into a battery that you can then start to think about heavier and heavier vehicles. I think the way forward there will probably almost certainly though be in a hybrid model. So a lot of the truck companies that we're working with now, they're looking at the battery pack with a hydrogen range extender. So the two would then work together. Again, one of the challenges for the big heavy goods vehicle, the articulated lorries, is they don't often have one driver. Certainly if you're someone like Tesco's, that lorry's got 2, possibly 3 drivers working shifts, right? The seat doesn't get cold, much less have time to sit and recharge your thing up. Okay, so there you've got to start talking about either having hydrogen to recharge with, or you've got to start talking about having interchangeable battery packs.
Paul?
Thank you. Thank you for an excellent presentation. In fact, it explained what's so novel about the British Volt, and also what is the rationale behind building British Volt here in Britain. And I'm also, as a senior academic from Newcastle University, I'm very pleased to see that you are having some schemes for graduates and apprenticeships and everything. The one question, maybe I misheard it. You said in the presentation there has to be an input of 50 megawatt to get a gigawatt to get 1 gigawatt of energy out of a battery.
No, so 50 gigawatts of energy consumed in the manufacturing process to make a capacity of a battery of 1 gigawatt hour.
All right.
So it's the ratio of energy in the manufacturing to actually give you the product, okay? And that's a really rubbish ratio.
Right.
We're down to 20, okay, with our factory. It's still not a great ratio, but what it means is that, if you're going to start making the batteries and you're going to use fossil fuels, it's a very inefficient way to go about saving the planet, okay? It only makes any sense if you're going to use renewable energy and you're not going to use gas and you're not going to use coal, okay? Because the amount of embedded energy is significant to get it made. And that's to do with the, at the end of the battery process, when you put it all together, and work. Okay, right? It has to go into a thing called formation agent and testing, where it's charged and discharged, charged and discharges. A fair chunk of that factory is literally millions of batteries sat around at the end going charge, discharge, to bring all the various processes together to make it a functioning battery you can then start to use.
Yeah. So what exactly the input I should give in to charge the battery to get out of 1 unit of power, like for example? How much energy I should put in order to charge the battery that you would be producing?
Oh, once it's working,
yes.
You're fine. You know, you put a kilowatt in, you'll get a kilowatt out.
All right.
Okay.
1-to-1 ratio.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few losses, but I mean,
that's right,
not significant. No, that part of the process once you made it is absolutely okay.
Yeah, that's what I got confused.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what you can't do, and this is where again people get mixed up with it, is if you're going to build a big heavy vehicle, like a Range Rover or something, and you're going to put a big battery pack in it, and then you're going to run it for to 300-400 miles down the M1 at 70-80 miles an hour. You can't change the laws of physics. Yeah, okay. In terms of what you take out has to go back in, and that becomes about the size of the charger and the voltage you can recharge at, but also the composition of the battery at the rate at which it can accept charge. And again, a lot of the batteries at the moment are constrained by the cathode and anode design to how quickly you can get the power in and out.
Yeah. So it's usually, sorry, being a little bit technical, usually to charge from 90%, 100%, you have to put lots of energy, I was told, within the battery. Is it still the case?
It just takes longer. It just takes longer. Just takes longer, yeah. That last bit to really top it up takes longer, yeah. It goes sort of quickly to about 80% and then slow for the last 20%, yeah. Good.
Thank you.
That's fine, that's no problem.
Yeah, good technical discussion there. Nick?
Thank you. The time horizon slide takes us out 30 years, and obviously, to turnover revenue of 2.2 trillion. You're going to have to.
We are ambitious.
Yeah, clearly. How are you? How are you going to stay ahead of the technology, and how much are you going to invest in R&D to maintain that competitive position? You're obviously at the forefront of the world.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at the people we've hired, like Isabel Sheldon, OBE, she got her OBE for her work in the battery industry. She's UK leading expert. Dr. Alan Patterson on that slide, chief battery chemist of the Faraday Institute. And then if you look at the team under them, these are all top battery science and chemists that we've gone out and hired. And one of the things that you find about the people that work for British Volt is that they are very passionate about what they want to do. Now, the trick in this game is to be on that leading edge, but not on the cutting edge, okay? Because you want to be best in class, but it's best in class what is a deliverable, saleable, warrantable product, okay? I think we probably all remember, a lot of us probably remember when they made a Maestro with a talking dashboard. Yeah, okay, and it was very quickly taken back off the market because the technology didn't work, okay? So you need to stay just at the top of that curve. I do read and I do get lots of stuff in social media where people say, University A or B or so-and-so has developed a new type of battery and it's all over for the current lithium-ion battery, and, someone's developed one that will do 2,000 miles range and you can charge it in an hour. The reality is, okay, there's lots and lots of prototype stuff out there that might work on a test bed, and it might work once, okay? But actually, that's not the market. If you're trying to sell a product, there's got to be something that you can put into something that's got to be reliable. People are going to want a 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 year warranty on it, okay? So that's not prototype technologies. Now, British Volt is, someone's bound to mention solid state. We are looking at solid state. Again, that's not a scalable, manufacturable, technology at the moment, but it will be one day. We are part owners of the British solid state program, which was set up by the government. We're in there with Warwick Manufacturing Group, Oxford University, and if it will produce a very good solid state battery, British Volt actually owns 10 years exclusive manufacturing rights to that as part of that arrangement.
Thank you, Liz.
Okay.
Thanks, Chair. My question isn't technical at all. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But I was particularly pleased to see in the presentation that the former M & Co store in Ashington will become the future Gen Hub. I do believe it's imperative that we create jobs for local people by ensuring that they have the right skills and the necessary skills. So we need to keep people in the area, and this harks back to my comments in the last agenda item probably. We need to stop the exodus that could see the demise of our smaller villages and rural villages down here. So a couple of questions on that. Just generally, when will it be ready? And how will you engage with the schools? And will this go across the whole age range? I mean, will it take in primary, secondary, whatever? And many of our small schools are sort of financially strapped, shall we say, and would struggle to meet any transport costs in getting to this facility. So will the charity be helping in that way at all?
Okay, right, that's quite a big question. That I'll
Thank
try
you.
and pick all the bits up on that. So I'm very well aware of the exodus. In fact, one of the first things that Alex did when I met him was he collared me and he said, "You realise 75% of young people leave by the age of 25, right?" And as the father of 3 children in that age range, that was horrifying for me. So, yeah, absolutely, we want to make sure that does not happen. And that's why when we did the planning permission, there was no argument from us whatsoever on the 106 agreement around priority for local employment. We have already got a learning and development team that is already engaged, not only with the university, it's already been engaged with NCC and with Northumbria College. We also have our social value lady, Tracy McNicky. She's been going out visiting schools. She will actually be the managing director that runs that training hub. And yeah, absolutely, listen, there's no point in us building something, all right? And then if people can't get to it because they need to be picked up by a minibus, that we wouldn't actually address that and want to do that. I am particularly keen, also having, been into places like Northumbria around trying to make sure that certainly the younger people, one of the reasons we're putting that STEM thing in the bottom is not about the people that can come and work for us right here today, right? It's about trying to get that next generation to think, there's a career here, I mean, I got asked the other day when I went out speaking to the school children, I asked them a question, who's the best person to give you careers advice? And they'll say, well, me mum, me dad, and I say no. And I say me teacher, I say no. Someone said a really successful person. I thought, well, actually, that's quite good, right? But the reality is the jobs of today are not the jobs of tomorrow. When I was growing up, whoever knew battery cell designer was a career. You'd gone home and said to your mum, I want to design batteries for a living, you'd have probably got a thick ear, all right? But the truth is, it's an incredibly well-paid, technically demanding job, okay? And we search the planet looking for the people to actually come and work for us to do it, yeah? So I really want, to have the ability there, working with places like Northumbria and Newcastle, that we pick out the kids, actually, that should go to university, but you know what? They probably won't, unless someone inspires them and gets them on the right career path at an early age. So it'll be about trying to find them, target them and get them, encouraged into careers. And then, you asked about the age range. Yeah, listen, you're never too old, okay, all right, to change career. I've got a company called the Rolton Group. It was my life's work up until 2 years ago, right? And then I was asked to come and do this. I changed career to actually come and do this, right? When our founder rang me up and told me I needed to get a proper job, So, okay, so, yeah, I do believe that, there should be opportunities here for everybody in this, right from top to bottom throughout the community.
Thanks. Malcolm?
Thank you, Chair. Peter, I've got a question about both ends of this, if you like, and I'll start with the waste end, because I asked you once before if the waste would be treated within the factory, and you said to an extent, but you're hoping to get partners to work with you immediately adjacent to the factory. Is that what these other units are for?
No, these other units are the supplier park, so they are making the components, okay? So, for instance, if you think of the battery, someone's got to make the metal can, you put it in, someone makes the electrolyte, someone makes... And then you have these sort of materials that go into the processing of the minerals to make things, what they call things like pre-cam materials for cathodes and anodes, okay? There's a sort of a whole chemistry set of mineral processing, material science, sat on the back end of a lithium-ion battery that then comes together, okay, to actually then be assembled to make the product. So when I talk about supplier park, If you think of like the supplier part that probably sits around Nissan, all the various components they bolt together to make a car, it's the equivalent of that for us. Now, in terms of the waste side, there's been various people talking about us discharging stuff into the sea. There is no waste discharge, right, from this factory whatsoever, okay? The only waste connection we've got is the one that goes to the toilets, okay, all right? There is a very, very small amount of byproduct hazardous waste that is produced. That be tankered off-site, and that gets taken away and processed in a special facility away, not actually even in Northumbria, okay? So we don't have emissions, we have no gas boilers, okay? And the only waste pipe we've got is the one that connects to the drain, and there is no discharge or anything going out to the sea. The site itself, because of the processes, does fall under the COMA regulations with the environmental health officer here at the council we've been working with, and it will be a fully COMA permitted and regulated site. And I'm just conscious I didn't answer your question about when was it going to be ready, did I? No. Okay, so just in terms of the build sequence, because that is important, okay? Right where we are now, you will have seen at Christmas that we got the conditional offer from government from something called the ATF fund, which is £100 million, and that's the Automotive Transformation Fund. What we've done is we've used that money to go in and raise the money now with a company called Tritax Aberdeen, which is £1.2 billion worth of funding. That builds the factory, that builds the whole shell and core. Okay, those two go together, and those two deals will be signed together. We're just coming to the end of the due diligence period with government. We're just waiting for them to finalise that, and then those two agreements get signed on the same day. And then the third part of it, which is the bit that we're also working on at the moment with our current fundraising rounds, is all the stuff that goes inside. Okay, because you basically, if you just take the Tritax, you end up with a big, massive, great, warm, lit, heated box in Northumberland. And I built the largest indoor go-kart track in Europe at that point. Okay, so what you actually then got to do is obviously fit it out with all the kit, and we have in fact already ordered our first production line. I signed the checks or hit the purchase order buttons for that last week, okay? So, and that's actually the critical path. The critical path actually runs through the kit. It doesn't actually run through the building.
The second question?
You just about answered it, Peter. What I was going to ask you about was the raw materials side, the supply side, and...
Well, there's two things there. You will have seen that a little while ago we announced the deal we've done with Glencore around securing a cobalt supply.
Yeah.
And then if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll have seen we have also signed an agreement, which is an agreement that's been brokered by UK Gov with the Indonesian government, with private companies in Indonesia to secure supply of nickel, because the rest of the nickel comes from Russia.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Okay. That's all I'm going to say on that subject.
Well, my question, it's about the raw materials. Is the intent to bring, for the sake of argument, ore into that factory and process it into whatever you need?
Not in our factory. That would go into the supply chain. So that's the partners that work around us, okay, that do that. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Do we have any more? Alex, sorry.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, to be honest, I don't think I've got a question. I've met a number of times with Peter and on site, and most of the questions have been asked then. But if I may, Chair, it's 3 or 4 meetings ago, I can't recall exactly when, I jokingly said I would mention the name of a housing estate in case anybody in that housing estate was watching YouTube. I couldn't believe when I got home I got 3 messages on social media thanking me for mentioning that housing estate. So what I'll do today, I would like to send a clear message via YouTube to the residents of Camas. And it's this. It's 2 messages. One, you've just heard a presentation from a man who must live in sleep, British Vault. That is a tremendous presentation, heartfelt, heart-given, well received. The other message is quite simple. I was there on Thursday night at Camas Club, not enjoying myself, of course, Chairman, representing the community, speaking with the community, meeting with the community, and listening to a presentation, question-answer session by ISG, the other people who will construct this plant. And one of the things that came out was, over the years, I've chaired meetings on behalf of RWN Power for a potential power station where British Volt's going. I've chaired, for the best part of 3 years, an application for a biomass plant on Battleship Wharf. Neither of them came about. The message today to residents of Camas is quite simple. British Volt is here. And that is a powerful, powerful message. The job opportunities will come. There aren't enough people in Camas to fill every job. If I do have a question, it's a very simple one. Peter, will you make sure that sign Doggets stays on the M&Co building? I used to get my school uniforms from that shop. Thank you.
Well, that's an easy one to... yeah, Peter, to respond to that. Are you going to keep it there?
So what would you, which sign did you say? Oh, fine, yeah, I'm sure we can do. I'm sure we can do that. That's
Part of the architectural heritage of the building.
Indeed, yeah.
Well, I think that... Oh, so this, sorry, yep.
Sorry, I know Peter sort of alluded to this before, and I'm going to come back. I know, did you say that nickel, we've got a contract for nickel here, and the rest of it comes from Russia?
So at the moment, most Europe gets its nickel supply from Russia, and it's one of the things that the EU is currently not sanctioned. They've sanctioned football club owners, and they've sanctioned people's daughters, and they've sanctioned just vodka and everything else.
Okay.
But you can draw your own conclusions as to why they haven't sanctioned the nickel, because you've got to get it from somewhere.
If that situation was to change, what effect would that have?
That's why we've got ours from Indonesia. Right. And that was the memorandum of agreement that we signed about 3 weeks ago in the Indonesian embassy, which is now out in the public domain.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think that's everyone spoken. Thank you all members. I think it was a universally well-received presentation. I think you can sense the support that you get from across all groups of the council.
Yes, Chair, very much so. And we do appreciate it. Actually, we genuinely do.
But thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Okay, I'll just...
Chair, we'll have to escape now. We've got
on to the last bit of the agenda, which is basically the monitoring report for information. Page 3338, are we happy to note that? And then urgent business, if any? None? Thank you, I'll close the meeting. Thank you very much.